Dear friends, dear fellow artists, all of us know how important is the paper in watercolor medium. The better is the paper, the better will stay the result, and all of us know that if the paper is not as good, then the result will be not as desired one, and as well the process of painting will be more difficult. In today's video, I want to share with you my overview of the most beloved paper that I like so much. It is Fabriano Acquarello, A3 size watercolor paper. But before we start, my name is Ala. I'm a sketch illustrator and watercolorist, and from 2020, I'm an art teacher too. In today's video, I invite you to see all the details that are represented here on Fabriano paper, like what does it mean that it is 50% cotton, what does it mean if it is mold made, what does it mean if it is cold press, what does it mean if it is 300 GSM. I will share as well some of the works that I already did on this watercolor paper, and I will share with you my own thoughts on this paper. As I've already mentioned several times, this is the paper that I love so much, so I think that my review will help you to pick up this paper and to enjoy it while painting your watercolors. So friends, let's proceed with the review of Fabriano Acquarello watercolor paper, and it is the A3 size. Pay attention to all the details that we have here. It is 50% cotton. It is mold made. It has 20 sheets. It is cold press, green fin, 300 GSM, and it is acid free. Why I insist in taking into account all these details, because later on I will explain what everything means. But meanwhile, let's see how it is this watercolor paper. This watercolor paper, as I mentioned, it is A3 side. It is 31 per 41 centimeters or 12 inches per 16 inches. It is a little bit different to an A3 size, but it is an A3 size. First thing that we see, it is that this is a watercolor pad, and we have all the paper is one into another, and it is already stretched on this pad, and we have here a special space where we can take it off when the painting is done. It is very convenient because you don't need any other support. You already has this paper that allows you to work wherever you go. You can take it on plein air. It will work perfectly. Apart from this, I want you to take into account the green fin and how the texture of this paper it is. It is smooth, but at the same time it is rough. Now I will share with you the works that I already did on this watercolor paper, that you can see how the effects are created. Later on I will add in detail about each of the work, but meanwhile I want you to pay attention to these details again. Now I will talk one by one what it does mean. 50% cotton. What does it mean? This is the composition, and in this case Fabriano Acquarello is made of 50% cotton, which gives it durability and pleasant texture for watercolor and other wet media. For example, here I worked with wet on wet technique, and you can see that the work is preserved really well. This work was done several months ago. The presence of cotton fibers usually indicates a higher quality of that paper, and it can handle moisture without warping or deteriorating. So this paper previously was wet with paper, and then I worked with wet on wet technique, and you can clearly see that the paper it handled really well all the moisture, and it is not deteriorated in any parts of this paper. The next thing, it is mold made. So what does it mean? The mold made process is a high quality method for paper production that results in consistent texture and strength. So you can see that when I move this paper, it is pretty strength. This process typically provides a fine and uniform surface texture which can enhance your artistic work. So if we turn on the other side, you can see all the works were made with wet and wet technique and later on with wet and dry. So if any questions, leave a comment below. I will help you and will share with you. We talked about mold made, and now let's talk about what does it mean cold press and grain thin. Usually cold press paper is one of the most popular choices for wet and wet techniques for those artists who are working with wet and wet technique. It has a textured surface, as I mentioned earlier, it has a textured surface that provides some tooth or grain for holding the paint. You can see that the ultramarine it is beautifully here hold it, and it also can achieve different effects. Look at how the transitions beautifully are made. And the grain thin suggests a fine texture which could be smoother compared to rougher cold press papers, but still retains some texture for the artwork. So when I earlier presented you the paper, I shared with you that it is rough, but at the same time it is very thin. And there are pretty beautiful effects created on this work. And about weight and thickness, I mentioned that the weight of this paper is 300 GSM. In the United States, it is called 140 lb. The weight and thickness of the paper can vary, so you might find different options within the Fabriano Acquarello line. Heavier papers measured in grams per square meter or GSM are typically preferred for watercolors, as those can handle more moisture without warping. Common weights for watercolor paper range from 140 GSM to 300 GSM or higher. Usually it is said that higher is better. I agree with this, but 300 it is the minimum, or let's say the average minimum, that it creates very beautiful work. You have to consider that these works are made within 2 or 3 hours, not more, and this paper still resists. If we want to work something with lots of washes, then you just have to go with the higher density of the paper. And about Fabriano itself, as a brand, Fabriano is a well-known and respected brand in the art paper industry. They have a long history of producing high-quality art papers, and many artists trust their products, myself included. So here it is, some of the latest works. The result of the works, it is much prettier on this paper than if working on another quality. I mentioned already that I have to still work with arches. I didn't try it, but I have to. But with Fabriano, I'm very happy. You see? For example, here I applied a lot of color, then I applied some white tempera, and the work looks really nice. And here you can see the transitions that I made while the paper was wet. Here the work was done in wet on wet technique, mainly the whole work. Only some details were done in wet and dry, and you can clearly see how beautifully the colors are mixing up while the paper it is wet. So friends, I'm really keen to find out if you like this video, and as well I would like to know your thoughts about this video. So please leave in comments below your thoughts if you have painted on this watercolor paper, if you have painted on other watercolor papers from Fabriano, And as well, why not share your most beloved watercolor paper in the comments? I will check it and I will try it as well. But till then, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and see you next time. Bye!